And we are live. Welcome to Composable, a podcast that takes you deep into Web3's building blocks. I feel super excited about this episode. I don't know if it's because of the coffee I had this morning, but I am really gassed. But I'm especially worried about the gas fees we are about to spend
Yeah.
while we put cross-chain bridges to test.
Mhm. Yeah, so in this episode, we're going to try out several different cross-chain bridges, starting from ETH and working our way to several different chains. And the point of this is that we all kind of talk about how bridging is a terrible experience, and this is why we need interop protocols. But I think part of that is that we all kind of have the vision of bridging back from 2021 when it was a lot harder. So today we're going to see kind of what's the current state of some popular bridges out there, how fast are they, and what's their user experience like.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. I don't know if anyone has ever done this before. Like, has anyone done a podcast where they're using blockchain protocols live? I don't think so. Okay, so first let's go through some tweets in the streets. And actually, it was really hard to find tweets that weren't shills. But this one tweet I thought was really good. And essentially, this person is saying that the big knock against bridges is that they have always been slow. But now that we have intent-based bridging, it's actually quite fast, like 5 to 30 seconds. And one person commented that, oh, well, the biggest knock is the fact that they are centralized. But in Web3, as we know, there are lots of trade offs, and we will be going through that in this episode as well. So, Jim also tweeted that in response to this tweet, he said the argument is less about the speed and it's more about the user experience. Now, Ellie said she hadn't bridged since 2021. So, for you, what was the issue with bridging when you last bridged?
Yeah. Okay. So I actually take that back. I have bridged since 2021, but there's several bridges I have not revisited since 2021.
Yeah.
My main thing back then was the gas fees were super high. So I remember one time I was trying to bridge to Arbitrum, and this was back when gas fees on Ethereum were terrible, and it was like $50 for the bridge fee, which was more than I wanted to bridge at the time.
Yeah.
And then I remember other ones where there wasn't routes from different chains to different chains, or at least I couldn't find them back then,
Yeah.
to bridge from something like Arbitrum to some like brand new roll up someone launched. So that was my experience back then. But I think that things have improved quite a bit now.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I think for me, the issue that I have with bridging are the gas fees. So literally a few days ago, I had to bridge between Ethereum and Polygon. And the amount I was bridging was around $1,000, but the bridging costs were $30. And I'm
Yeah.
like, technically, this isn't too expensive because if I bridge with a bank, it might be around $25 or $30. But at the
Mhm.
same time, I was like, nah, this is blockchain. This is Web3. Like, this is meant to be cheap.
Yeah.
Like, so I
Mhm.
refused. So I didn't bridge in the end, which is bad, right? Because I actually want to get those assets across someday. So I don't know if there's a protocol that times gas fees and then executes the
Mhm.
transaction when it's low. But yeah, I think for me, that's definitely the issue I have. And then another tweet that I saw was that, so Jim, the same guy, so he spoke to solvers and he realizes that every bridge or DEX integration is bespoke, which is a huge barrier for solvers because essentially they'll have to integrate with this platform and set up the configuration. And it's just a massive overhead, which means there must be a large incentive for them to do so with that particular platform. And I think that's an interesting contrast to the previous tweet because it's exactly those solvers that are using intent-based bridges. So even though it's offering users a great user experience, for the solvers who are now trying to offer this experience, it is a bit tricky to support the various protocols that exist.
Yeah, and I think a key point here is that a lot of the popular routes are going to be supported, but it's like the new chains or the smaller chains that don't have supported routes. But those are the ones that you want to experiment on as like a user and where the new opportunities and the new applications are. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like when a platform like Base was launched, Base is very popular simply because of the fact, or increasingly popular because of the fact of it being a part of Coinbase. So even if
Yeah.
you're a retail user and you're not so crypto aggressive, like you still know about Coinbase. So when you hear about this Base chain, maybe you do feel a little bit more incentivized to potentially bridge and have some activity on Base. But other chains don't have that advantage.
Mhm.
So definitely that's a great point that if the platform that's offering this great UX is not something that developers want to integrate with, then we definitely still have some problems to solve.
Yeah, and I actually think exchanges, they're never mentioned in the bridge conversations, but they actually are pretty major bridges when you think about it. I mean, I myself have oftentimes just said, just send my money to Arbitrum. I'm not going to bridge, just send it from Coinbase.
That is
And
such a good point.
yeah, well, so sometimes, they can be kind of expensive, but a lot of times they're not nearly as expensive as paying for it on like the L1 actually. So there's trade-offs, right? Like they're kind of a good user experience, to be honest, most of the time,
Yeah.
but also you're using a centralized exchange as your bridge, which isn't very crypto.
Yeah. I think you just found a marketing angle for all exchanges. They should market themselves as a low cost bridge.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's really cool. So let's jump into some of the stats. So I found this platform called Artemy Terminal, and they had some really great stats about where is value flowing across chains. Because yeah, whilst we've been talking about bridges, the reality is as a user, you're more thinking, I'm on this chain and I want to get to that chain. And what I thought to be very interesting is the fact that Ethereum had the highest inflows, but also had the highest outflows. And if you look at the aggregate net flows, platforms like Base and Solana definitely have more on the plus side, meaning more value is flowing in than it is going out. And that definitely does match some of the narratives we know about. The president of the United States just launched a meme coin on Solana. So I'm sure the inflows even went a lot higher this past weekend. And yeah, so even though Ethereum does have a lot of activity, it doesn't mean the value is actually staying there. Do you have any views on this, Ellie?
Yeah, I think that this was a really interesting chart. So specifically, on the right-hand side, we're looking at a chart that says the top net flows,
Yeah,
and the top net flows are different in some cases than the top inflows and outflows. So I think one that's interesting is Base is obviously at the top, which makes sense. It's booming in popularity.
yeah,
But you have something like OP Mainnet, which is lower on the top outflows, but a lot higher on the net inflows or net flows. So I actually think that the net flows is probably the most interesting metric because you can kind of almost use it as a proxy for which chains are gaining more developers and more activity and things like that.
yeah, definitely. And Ethereum is, I mean, this chart is the top 20, and of the top 20, Ethereum is at the bottom. And, there's a narrative around like, L2s are extracting value from Ethereum. But then
Yeah.
at the same time, L2s are meant to like solve problems in Ethereum. So I don't know if this chart is showing a good thing that is all the way at the bottom or if it's a bad thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. In my view, it's not a bad thing because this is what L2s are supposed to do. They're supposed to scale. And obviously, that means you need to move Ethereum from the L1 over to these L2s.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it shows that, rollups are working to help scale Ethereum.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. If anyone knows the TVL of Ethereum compared to these chains, if they can comment in the live stream, if you're watching this live right now, I'd love to know. Because even though we see the most net flows out of Ethereum from this top 20 graph, Ethereum probably still has the largest TVL. I can almost bet that it probably still has
Oh,
the
yeah.
most value. And also, Bitcoin isn't doing too bad. It is negative in terms of the net flows, but not so poor. And it's not doing too bad.
Oh, yeah. I actually didn't even realize Bitcoin was on there. That's really interesting.
Yeah. Is there anything surprising? There's Blast on here. It's interesting that Blast is on the top 20. I've never used Blast. I remember seeing Blast in the news at one point, and then I haven't really heard. So I guess something's happening there. And then in terms of the actual bridging protocol, so now we know where volume is flowing in Web3 right now. Then we are looking at now the bridging protocols. So the top bridge was actually the Arbitrum bridge. This actually surprised me so much, but it does align with the previous one because right after Ethereum, you do see Arbitrum having the most flows, like in terms of inflows and outflows. So it could be people bridging in between Arbitrum and Ethereum, or out of Arbitrum into Base or Solana. So I thought that was quite interesting. And in this case, they are speaking about the Arbitrum canonical bridge. And right after that, we have Across.
So I just had a thought. So it
Mhm.
makes sense that like Across is really high up there. But in an intent solver network, the solvers have to rebalance. So I guess they would probably be using maybe the Arbitrum native bridge. So maybe some of this is double counted. I'm not sure. But that would explain partially why Arbitrum has so much.
That makes so much sense. And if anyone who isn't sure about what we mean when we say canonical bridge and intent-based bridging, don't worry, we'll explain it a bit later. So definitely stick around.
Yeah.
I think Wormhole also surprised me. Have I? No, I have used Wormhole. I've used Wormhole before, but after the hack, I didn't really hear anyone talking about it. But I think they're
Yeah.
making a lot of strides to revamp their protocol, but I haven't looked into it much, but it's being used still, so that's good. Anything else? Anything interesting here?
I mean, I think that also just the other interesting fact is how much TVL is locked in bridges, which we may have another graphic for, but it shows that bridges are very, very important. So are dexes and, so are other things, but bridging is like such like the top one in the top 3 easy, the use case of applications deployed on these blockchains.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I think I removed the graphic, but there was that one from DeFi Llama where it showed like the top applications in the DeFi space, and bridging was number 3. So that makes a lot of sense. So now,
All right, now
yeah,
we're gonna get into some bridging. So I'll explain my setup here.
Yeah.
So let me share my screen. All right, so we have this website, which was actually created by 0xJim, so same author from those tweets. And it's too many bridges. I think this sums up the state of interop today, is that there's so many bridges and you don't know which one to use or how to figure out your route. So this is a really cool website and we're gonna use it a little bit. But to start, I have around $100 in Ethereum on Ethereum mainnet. And I'm going to bridge it to a bunch of different chains. And while we do that, we'll kind of talk about how the experience is. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Arbitrum native bridge. All right, so let me connect my wallet. Okay, so how much should I bridge over? Maybe I'll do, because I think want to use a different bridge to Arbitrum as well. So maybe I'll do like $20.
Sure. Well, let's see what gas fees are. Let's see if you can afford gas fees, but yeah.
Okay, I'll say, okay, this doesn't show it in USD. Okay. How much is $20 in ETH right now?
This is already the bridging experience.
How much is
.0003 ETH? So 3
yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay. No, wait, no. So 0.0003?
Yeah. That should be about $20.
All right. So gas fee is about $4. That's not too bad for mainnet. And yeah, we're going to bridge to Arbitrum 1. I don't have a balance on Arbitrum 1. So yeah, just $0. All right, let's see. Let's do it.
And I think one thing to note here is you are bridging ETH. I think if you were bridging an ERC20 token, it would have been more expensive.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm trying to show my wallet in a separate tab so you can actually see what I'm doing. I'll try to remember to do that.
Yeah, we see it. Thank you.
Okay. It was submitted. Okay.
Nice.
And let's see. This one, it has a visual. I actually haven't used the Arbitrum native bridge in quite some time.
Oh, really? What I like about the Arbitrum bridge is that they also have the bridge working for the testnet as well. And I think that's one feature of canonical bridges, because as a developer, if you're building a cross-chain experience, you are building a testnet because you're not spending real gas fees. But for things like intent bridges, you can't demo that in a testnet environment because you don't have a solver network on the testnet. So definitely, if I'm a developer, I will build with a canonical bridge. And by the way, everyone, if you are listening to this on the podcast, we are currently looking at Ellie's screen where she's performing a live transaction of a bridging experience from Ethereum to Arbitrum using Arbitrum's bridge, which apparently is the most used bridge in all 2024. Let's go.
So this says that it has 14 minutes left to bridge. If I view the transaction details, it was initiated on Ethereum and it's just waiting before the funds arrive. So we'll let that run in the background and let's do another bridge. So let's try the across bridge. I should have had this open already. I forgot.
That's okay.
Okay, yeah, let's do it again. So from Ethereum, mainnet to Arbitrum 1, and I'll bridge the same amount, 0.000 ETH. Oh my god. Oh, I think I might have a different wallet connected. Let me try again. Okay, let's reload this and try again. 3. Insufficient balance. Okay, minor technical difficulties. Alicia, you can chat while I figure this out.
Yeah, sure. Let me see if I can actually share one of my screens because I'm going to check out Across Protocol and the documentation. So Across Protocol is not a bridge I have built with yet, but it's definitely something that I would like to try out because when the first guy was tweeting saying that, oh, we now have faster experience on chain because we're using intent-based bridges, Across Protocol is a beautiful example of this. And actually, according to the stats from Artemy Terminal in 2024, they were the second most used bridge. So I would imagine Across Protocol actually has a lot of support for many chains. I wonder if there's a way for me to quickly find that. But here they're saying it's an interoperability protocol powered by Intents. And Across Protocol, alongside Uniswap and maybe another player, I'm not sure who, maybe Optimism, they actually have an ERC for standardizing cross-chain messages because we have so many bridges as we see from the graphic, but we also have so many ways that you can send messages across chains. So they have thought about creating this ERC. So when I was at ETH Denver, they spent a lot of time promoting this ERC about cross-chain intents. And I believe, if I remember correctly, the point is how do you structure this message to be received across chains so that even though you're a different blockchain, you are able to expect the same messaging type. And this really helps for composability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is their intent protocol it's really interesting, and there's a lot of discussion right now happening on like ERC standardization and why it's important to standardize the interfaces that applications use to send messages cross chain, because you are going to have a bunch of different ways to do it. Some you have a native bridge, you'll have an intent solver, all of these things, but applications don't want to have to worry about that. They just want to bridge their funds and have them magically arrive on the other side. But I did figure out, I'll go back to sharing my screen now. I did figure out what the problem was. I was connected to the Optimism network and not Ethereum mainnet, classic bridging mistake. But now we're going to use Across to bridge to from Ethereum to Arbitrum 1. And it is asking me to sign this transaction. It looks good. It says it's going to take about 15 seconds. Okay. Let's see how long it takes to confirm. All right. We're still waiting. In the meantime, maybe this would be a good time to explain like the difference between a native bridge and an intent bridge. Oh, there we go. All right, so we're still waiting for this one to fill. But so a native bridge, or also called a canonical bridge a lot of the time, is a bridge where it's baked into the rollup itself. So the rollup itself knows about this bridge and it's responsible for minting native assets. So for example, in Arbitrum, the Arbitrum native bridge is responsible for minting the canonical ETH on Arbitrum. Then you have intent solvers, which do things a little bit differently. What they do is basically front a user money. So a user says, I want to bridge this amount, and the intent solver will say, okay, I'll just like front you the money on your destination chain, and then I'll collect your money on the source chain at some later point. And there's a trade-off between these two. So native bridges, very secure, things like that, but they're often slow, whereas intent bridges are usually very fast, but you also might have the issue where you don't necessarily have a route from the chain that you need to get there, or solvers could also run up against liquidity issues. So solvers have to have liquidity on both chains to do this. And if they don't have enough liquidity, they aren't going to be able to fulfill your bridge. But in general, I think intent solvers are like very, very popular today. And I think that they're here to stay for sure. Okay, so my transaction finished. It took 19 seconds. So it took, I think, maybe like 15 seconds for it to be confirmed on Ethereum first, and then 19 seconds for the actual bridge. So this is a lot faster than the Arbitrum bridge right now, which still has 8 minutes left.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. And how much did it cost?
Oh, this is a good. Looks like the fee was only 10 cents, whereas the fee on Arbitrum, I think this one was about $4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's definitely a way better experience. And you bridged the same amount as well? Did you bridge $20 worth?
So yeah, I bridged about $10 or yeah, about $20. I think I mistyped in the first one. I think I only ended up bridging $1 on the Arbitrum bridge, but that's all right.
Good. I mean, at least it's still gonna bridge, which is good.
Yeah. And maybe just to set up some stuff, I'm going to use the across bridge again, and I'm going to bridge to OP mainnet.
Okay. So you're bridging from Arbitrum to OP. I'm curious to see what too many bridges.wtf would have recommended for bridges if you search it as well. Let me see if I could do that in the meanwhile.
Okay, I'm going to bridge about $20 from mainnet to Arbitrum or to Optimism. Confirm my transaction. And we'll wait for that to go. So yeah, this is a good point. Want to go back to this website, which is really cool because it helps you find which bridge you should use. So let's see all of the bridges you could use from Ethereum to Optimism. Across, dBridge, Everclear. I've used some of these, not all of these for sure though, but there's a lot, which makes sense because Optimism is a very popular chain.
Yeah. At the bottom, I see that ZK bridge. I'm curious if you click that. Yeah, is that live? Because I've heard of it, but I've not. Oh, it's live.
It looks like it is. All right, let's try it. I'll
Nice.
connect my wallet.
This is so exciting.
I know we're doing this in real time, trying stuff we haven't tried before.
Gas fees well spent.
Yeah. Okay, let me bridge. Which chain should we bridge to? Oh, let's bridge to base.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, whoops. Please select a token. A token first or log in first? Did I not select a token? Oh, wait, Polygon. I want it to be on base. Okay. Technical difficulties right now. I'm not sure what it's asking me to do.
Can you select the token again and see if it just needs a refresh or something?
Yeah. Oh, now it put me back to Polygon, which isn't what I chose. Okay, interesting. I wonder if maybe you only can bridge other assets? What if I tried like USDT? Okay. I'll come back to this one later in the background and maybe I'll work on it because I do want to try out a ZK bridge for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. What bridging should we do now?
Okay, so now you have funds on Optimism right now that you did with Across?
Optimism and Arbitrum, yeah. The Across bridge took 22 seconds on Across, so that's pretty good.
Amazing. But you don't have enough money in Arbitrum, so maybe on Base you can bridge. Now you're on Base, you can either bridge to Arbitrum or bridge to a non-EVM chain like Solana.
Ooh, yeah, let's bridge to Solana. That will be good. Actually, that might be hard. I don't have a Solana address ready.
Ooh, let's on the internet. Let's just send it to anyone.
Yeah,
you can be our local recipient of the composable pod.
All right. Yeah, someone can paste a Solana address and I can bridge to it, and we'll see how it works.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I do. Okay, so let's do. I have dBridge up here. Let's try bridging from OP to Arbitrum.
Sure. And that's also interesting, right? Because if you are on the EVM and you're bridging across chains, you know that you can send to your address, but on another chain. But once you leave the EVM, then you're like, oh, I don't have an account on this chain. Oh, I don't have Solana for
Yeah.
gas fees. Oh.
Mhm. I've never tried to use MetaMask with anything other than an EVM chain. I actually don't know if it's possible.
I don't know. I think MetaMask is just for EVM chains.
Mm.
Because I had a Solana wallet, but it was a different like wallet I used.
Yeah, I've only ever used like Phantom Wallet for Solana.
Yeah, Phantom. Yeah, precisely. So this is another part of the UX for developers or just users.
All right, I'm going to connect my wallet and we're going to bridge the same amount from Arbitrum to Optimism. Or wait, well, it looks like the other way around. We're going to bridge from Optimism to Arbitrum because I misclicked. Oh, I don't have enough balance on Optimism. Let me see. What's the max I can send? I can do, okay, $15. That makes sense. I bridged about 20 and the rest is kind of eaten up in fees.
So this is dBridge and the gas fees are now how much? I can't see it well.
It doesn't give me estimated gas fees, but let me see what it ends up being in my wallet.
Okay. So that's a UX concern. I don't know how much I'm paying to bridge.
Okay, this one I have to sign the terms and agreements first.
Well, you're not blocked out from being in the US.
That's a good point. All right, let's wait for it to confirm.
So meanwhile, I'm looking at dBridge. I've not used it before, but I have heard on it. But they describe themselves as their bridging solutions that move as fast as DeFi. So I'm not sure what that means exactly. So they have a developer page and you could go on the documentation. But of course, people listening to this podcast or live stream, you might be a developer, you might be a user. So Ellie is showing more of the user side. And then here we can see, well, what is this protocol about? So it's defining itself as DeFi's Internet of Liquidity, enabling real-time movement of assets and information across the DeFi landscape. Okay, cool. I want to know more about how it's implemented.
Okay, so according to dBridge, my order has been filled. And so it should show up on my Arbitrum wallet. So actually, let's see what my Arbitrum balance is now if I switch to Arbitrum 1.
Awesome.
I have, okay, this is not showing me my balance on just Arbitrum 1. You can tell that I don't use MetaMask as my wallet.
Really? What's your wallet of choice?
So I really like Rabby wallet. That's my wallet of choice usually. What about you?
I use MetaMask. And I've been burned by doing that before because I did something really stupid one time on chain and I was telling my friend about it and they were like, oh, other wallets will totally warn you if you were about to do a bad transaction. And yeah.
So dBridge was actually super fast. So it looks like our funds are over on Arbitrum because we have about $36, which makes sense because we bridged the original 20 plus $1 plus 15 just now. So dBridge was really fast, which I'm really impressed by.
Interesting.
I think it was a little bit faster than the Across one, actually.
Okay, so we need to investigate how dBridge works. That could probably be an interesting one for another episode.
Yeah. All right. I also wanted to try out this bridge. I've never used the Hop bridge before, but it was recommended for us to try. So I want to test it out.
Amazing.
And this time I'd like to bridge to, well, let's see the ones that they support. Let's bridge from Ethereum to Base because we weren't able to do that yet.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. I actually really don't know anything about Hop Bridge. Estimated wait 3 minutes. Okay, so a little bit slower than dBridge and Across, but definitely only a few minutes, so not too bad.
Yeah, I used Hop before one time in the past. And I think when they first launched, I used them because I think they had some incentives if you provided liquidity. So it definitely uses that kind of liquidity framework for managing cross-chain interactivity. But I
All
didn't
right.
realize they were still around. That's good.
I do kind of like this user experience that they show your confirmations on Ethereum. That's actually really cool.
I love it. I love it.
Let's go see how our native bridge is doing. Okay, so the native bridge has succeeded. So yeah, it only took about 15 minutes. Not too terrible, but much slower than all of the other bridges.
Yeah. And one thing to mention, so the native bridge or the canonical bridge is the most used bridge, right? But as we see, the user experience is quite slow. But it could be that some of the solvers are actually using these bridges as well, which is what Ellie said at the start, right? So across protocol, even though as a user, you are not interacting with a native bridge, what happens is you send your message to the network and the network broadcast this to their solvers. So now their solvers are able to figure out like, oh, you want to bridge assets from Ethereum to Base? That's amazing because I actually have assets on Base as well. So I will say, you know what? I know eventually a transaction will confirm, and they can set their configuration as to like how many confirmations they would like to see from the networks involved. And then they will directly send you those assets on the destination chain. So they're not actually moving it across chain in that moment, but at some time later, they will rebalance it. And that's why Ellie was saying that, yeah, they may make use of these canonical bridges like Arbitrum. So the user doesn't have to deal with that. But the user definitely pays them fees to be able to, do that on their behalf.
Mhm. All right, so this one is still pending. In the meantime, let's try using too many bridges and choose a bridge at random. So where should we bridge from and to?
We definitely need to get to, oh, we don't have an address for Solana yet. Geez. Okay. What's an interesting?
I would actually like to bridge from maybe like Arbitrum to some L3 or a smaller chain.
Yeah.
Which one should we use?
Is there one called Alt Ape something?
Oh, Ape Chain.
Ape Chain, yeah.
The chains you entered aren't real. Okay, Ape Chain is real, but it might not be called
Wow.
Ape Chain.
That is big shade. That is big shade.
Okay. I know Rari. That's
Yeah.
an L3. Okay, so only 2 bridges to Rari. Relay is an intent bridge, or it uses the same style of intents. I've never used gas.zip, so what if we try it?
Yeah, let's try it.
Okay, I really
Whoa.
like this is a really cool UX. All right, let's connect my wallet.
You said this is cool. That is the most like engineer thing I've ever heard. I don't
Yeah,
think
only an engineer would like find this cool. A regular user would think it's terrible.
this looks like a virus. I'm so sorry to gas.zip. But if I was a user and I clicked a link and I saw this, I'd be like, what just happened to my computer?
So this one recognizes Ape Chain.
Nice.
So, okay, let's do it from Arbitrum. Can I search? Since that's where we have most of our funds right now. And we're going to send it to, let's go to Ape Chain. Okay, let's do amount per chain. Okay, I'm just trying to interpret this. So it's going to Ape Chain from Arbitrum, right? That's what it's telling me? Or no, or is it going from Ape Chain to Arbitrum? And
You're
not
connected to Ape Chain on the wallet.
Okay. So let's try this again.
Okay, yeah. So I think now it's Arbitrum to Ape Chain.
Okay, this sounds good. So let's send it.
So you're sending. I like that they actually have the US values though.
Yeah, I really like that too when they show the ETH values in US dollars.
Yeah. I don't know if Ape Chain has their own gas token. Oh yeah, they do have their own gas token.
Wow, that was really fast, actually.
Oh wait.
It was already done.
What?
Yeah. We can see. Okay, that was pretty neat. Gas.zip is pretty cool.
Do you mind just checking in the Explorer because I have trust
Yeah.
issues right now?
Yeah. Okay. Let me see.
Does it have a link? I don't want to like if it's too complicated, no worries. But I do see a little transaction on the chain side in the outbound. Yeah. But I think on the UI there was a transaction link.
Oh, there was. Okay. I must have missed that. Okay. This is, I think, the transaction hash. So 41 seconds ago, and the amount. Yeah.
That's
That's
crazy.
pretty cool.
When you go onto their documentation as well, they do mention the fact that they are supported by layer 0 chains. And it said that it uses the layer 0 V2 protocols for a gas refuel function using Abels to bridge native gas across a layer 0 network. So yeah. And a few bridges do use layer 0. I can't tell you off the top of my head, but we definitely need to inspect layer 0 at some point.
Yeah. Layer 0 is one of the protocols that I think underpins a ton of bridges.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. We were bridging to base. Oh, on Hop.
Oh yeah. Okay.
It looks like that's still going, although maybe I just need to reload my screen. No. All right, let me check my transactions in. Okay, I think that this was the one I sent to base. I suppose we'll just have to see where, if I go to base mainnet, does it show that I have a balance yet?
Also, keeping track of where your money is across chain, also something that is an issue. But MetaMask has this portfolio link right up under the USD balance. And I think if you click that, you can then see your balances across chain, across EVM chains at least.
So it actually looks like the base bridge did go through. It just didn't confirm it in the UX, but it did go through. So we have $20 on base.
Amazing. And I think we now have a Solana address if you want to try that out.
Ooh, perfect. Perfect. Okay, let's use too many bridges and say, let's bridge from Optimism to Solana. I have never done that route myself personally.
Yeah.
And which one should we try?
Nitro. Why is that's not Arbitrum Nitro? That must be something else called Nitro.
Yeah. All right, let's try it. Okay, redirecting me to the new Nitro.
By the way, we do not advise you just going around testing random bridges. We do not know the security and trust models that they are using. So definitely at your own risk.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point to make. Okay, so we want. Okay, this one says I'm connected to Arbitrum. Let me change my network to OP. Okay, select token. So I want to say ETH on OP mainnet. Okay. And how much ETH do I have on OP mainnet? I don't know. But I'll do like 3, like $10. Okay, it says I have an insufficient balance. Okay, did I mess up my balance? Let's see.
These gas fees, man.
Oh, so it does say I only have 10 cents on OP mainnet. I thought I bridged over more.
Yeah, I thought you bridged 20. Check your transaction history.
Yeah. Oh, whoops. I realized that my screen is not sharing my wallet. Okay. Let's go, back to my transaction activity. Created a salted order. Which bridge did we do this one on?
From Ethereum to Base? I think it was across.
No, this one was Ethereum to Optimism. Oh, this was across. Yeah, you're right. Okay. So yeah, I suppose that's part of this is we need to actually check that we got the funds on the other side.
Definitely. So what were you checking before? Were you checking whether you had funds on Optimism? Because maybe you can just go on OP scan and just check your wallet address.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I don't know if
my wallet address. Yeah, it does say it's only 11 cents, but according to my wallet, I bridged over, let's see, more. Yeah, the total was 19.77. So where did all of this was it in the priority fee? No. Okay, interesting. I'll need to look into this. Here's the actual transaction.
Oh, that's D-Bridge. That was via D-Bridge.
Oh, you're right. Was. Okay.
But the transaction, the value says 19 in the Blockchain Explorer.
Oh no, we did D-Bridge to bridge from OP to. Oh, we already bridged from OP to Arbitrum. Maybe I don't have on OP anymore.
Okay, so now you have dust in your wallet.
Now I have dust. Okay. Well, this is also part of the bridging experience where you don't know where your funds are.
Yeah, and also you have dust, which means even if you're bridging assets across chain, like you might realize that you left 11 cents on one chain, but it's not worth it to bridge it over because the gas fees might be higher.
Mm-hmm.
So in the example with a cross, we saw it was 10 cents to bridge. So therefore you'd pay 10 cents and then you have 1 cent left over.
Yeah. Okay, so does Nitro do the swap for me from Ethereum to Sol? Let's see. Okay, I don't see a button that says swap.
Try another network just to see if that's an indication of the fact that it doesn't exist, the root.
Yes. Let me see. Okay, it looks like my wallet was still connected to OP. So let's try this again. Okay, ETH on Arbitrum 1 and to Sol on Solana. I'm not sure what button I need to press to initiate this.
Can you do ETH on Arbitrum 1 to Ethereum? I'm wondering if it's just like they haven't put a button on the UX when the root doesn't exist. But if you put one that's a little bit more obvious, maybe you'll be able to test that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Is this mainnet? ETH mainnet? Yeah. Sol.
Yeah, also doesn't.
Okay. I guess this bridge is not going to work for us. Let's try another one. Portal bridge. That should work. I know.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do from ETH mainnet. Actually, let's do from Arbitrum because I've never bridged to Solana from an L2.
Okay.
And we'll choose Solana as the network and hopefully Portal can do the swap. Connect my wallet again. And we are going to bridge 0.006. Select a destination wallet. Okay, we have our Solana address. Send you this wallet address. Review the transaction. And okay, it costs 64 cents to do the bridge, and it's estimated to take 8 seconds to go through. So I will confirm the transaction in my wallet. And all right, it's pending. Okay, it says it has 5 seconds left. So this is still pretty fast, especially for bridging from an L1 to, or an L2, two completely different chains, like 2 different L1s. This is pretty fast.
Yeah, definitely. Love that. Like especially from like a non-EVM chain or from an EVM chain to a non-EVM chain, totally different network. Are you aware what Portal uses, if they're like liquidity or if they are doing something else?
I don't recall. I want to say that they're liquidity based, but it's been a lot. I don't think I remember.
That's okay. I see on the facts they mentioned something about, they're using Wormhole underneath.
Oh, Wormhole underneath. Okay, that makes sense.
Amazing. Yeah, I think we definitely need to have another episode where we actually go into the architecture of each of those bridges because doing it real time is a bit chaotic.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting because I didn't expect such fast user experiences.
Mm-hmm. So this one estimated 8 seconds, but it's actually taking a lot longer than that right now. So we'll leave that. But we'll do our last bridging experience, which I'm really excited for. And this is going to be the super chain bridge for OP's super chain. I've never used this before, and I think it'll be really fun. So first, we don't have any tokens on OP. Yeah, I forgot about that. So let's do base is in the super chain. So we can bridge to base to, which one should we do? Let's do world chain.
So does this mean that if you are an OP chain, automatically you have direct bridging in between all the other chains within?
I believe that it's not all OP chains. You have to be like elected into the specific super chain group.
Got it. Got it.
I have no idea how fast this is going to be. It says it's going to take 5 seconds. So, yep, let's see. I confirm all of those terms that I need to accept, and I'm going to start the bridge. I will confirm in my wallet. All right, it's going. It's submitted on base, and we'll see how long this takes.
Amazing. Can you remind me, when you did the portal bridge, did it tell you how long it would take?
Yeah, it estimated 8 seconds, but
Okay.
it definitely took longer than that.
Okay. And what were the fees?
The fee was 64 cents.
That is not bad. That's
Yeah,
really
that
cool.
really is not bad.
Yeah, like if you have your funds on an EBM chain and you want to buy like a random meme coin on Solana, it's not too expensive to get your assets across, so that's good.
Okay, so the super chain bridge was actually pretty fast. Not quite 5 seconds, but definitely on 20 seconds or so. And yep, here's my transaction. And you can see, it doesn't show it in USD, but yeah, this is about, where is the actual value? Okay, I need to look through this to find what my actual value is. Okay, so here it is. Wrapped ETH on world chain. Okay, this makes sense.
Oh, you swapped the world chain. That's amazing.
Yeah. So super chain bridge is pretty good, I have to admit.
That's great. And what were the fees? Oh, you said it wasn't in USD, so you have to convert it to C.
Yeah. Let's see. Fees, gas price. Yeah, it's not in USDC, so I don't have any relative to compare it to.
I reckon that's probably cents or dollars, if so much.
Yeah.
It's probably cents, just because $20 was 0.0003. So yeah, that's probably cents. Great.
Perfect. Okay, so we are concluding our real life user experience of bridging, which I thought was really fun, especially to use bridges that I've never used before.
Yeah, thank you so much for handling that live as well. Even though we didn't build the bridge, I felt the same anxiety as if you were demoing your own product. Like, oh my gosh, please work. And I think it'd be worthwhile for us to talk through the experiences we just had, especially for those who are just listening to this and not actually watching live. So maybe you can start, Ellie.
Yeah, so I think an interesting thing is that I think all of the bridges we tried, except for Arbitrum's native bridge, were pretty fast. I guess Hop was like of only a few minutes, so a little bit slower than the others, but I really don't think that you can say speed is a problem in bridging anymore, because it seems like there's a lot of solutions out there that are really fast.
Definitely. Even gas fees, they weren't too bad. They were sensible at the time.
Yeah, the fees were not bad at all.
Is there any bridge that stood out to you from like a UX perspective, just like the interface and how easy it was to navigate?
Yeah. Let's see. So I need to go back to all my tabs with the bridges. I was impressed by gas.zip just because I had never used it before, and it was really fast, and it was able to bridge to Ape Chain, which is a smaller chain. So I thought that was really cool. I think that was my favorite. What about you?
Interesting. I think you're talking like a true dev here, but for me, gas.zip unfortunately was my least favorite because of the UI. Now I like UIs like these. I know Curve, their UI was sort of like this, but come on, I'm sorry. Like bridging is already hard. The fact that I made it to your website and then you're showing me the display like this is too complex. Like we weren't sure like which bridge we were even like which network we were bridging to and from. They did have the amounts in USD, which was nice, but I think this was my least favorite.
Interesting. Okay. What was your favorite?
I think I might be biased, and I think because I know of Across the most, I quite like to cross, and I like a portal. I think both of them, the UIs felt nice, simple, sleek. I wanted to interact with it. Like when I saw Portal, I'm like, oh, I'm going into a portal. This is nice. So those two are my favorite for sure. The Arbitrum interface, something about it being on Arbitrum's website just makes me feel like I can trust it a lot more. So even though these are a lot faster, if I was bridging a large amount, I think I might still use Arbitrum just because I'm like, okay, this is what Arbitrum recommends. Even if I don't understand what canonical bridges are, like psychology wise, I think my brain tells me, yeah, choose Arbitrum if you're transacting a lot.
And that brings up a good point. So we talk about how fast these bridges are, but then the question is, well, like, why isn't Arbitrum's native bridge fast? Like, what is the trade-off that you're making when you have a fast bridge versus a slow bridge?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think that comes into how messages are verified. So before I answer that, I just want to talk about how like blockchain interoperability works. So essentially, we are sending messages across chains. These are two isolated networks. But in order for me to send a message from one chain to another chain, the chain that's receiving that message has to verify that this is actually a valid message. So with all of the bridges that we went through today, they have different ways that they verify what is happening. So with a canonical bridge, what is actually doing the verification is the contract. So there is a bridge contract on each chain, which is the bridge contract that only the native tokens will be generated from or burned from. So this is managing all of that activity. This is on chain. So this makes it secure just from the POV that is public. And we're using the on-chain mechanisms to ensure that the transactions actually go through. We have validators validating these transactions just like they validate any other transaction on the network. But in order for these two networks to communicate, we do have to interact with the underlying infrastructure. So in the case of Arbitrum, in order for me to send messages from Arbitrum to another chain, they also have other contracts that you interact with. For example, the sequencer inbox. And the sequencer is responsible for taking messages off of this inbox and batching these transactions into a block and then sending it across chain. And then there are even proofs that have to be validated when the receiving chain gets the message as well. So I think because of all those components interacting and it has to be very secure, it makes it so that these transactions are actually slower. And in the example that Ellie did, we showed Ethereum bridging to Arbitrum. If we wanted to actually bridge from Arbitrum back to Ethereum, it will take a lot longer because the L1 chain finality means something different. On L1, finality is after some blocks, and that is around 15 minutes. And then we also have the fact that Arbitrum is an optimistic chain. So there's also the fraud proof window, which makes it so that finality is actually around 7 days. So all of that comes together to make a more secure system, but it also means that it takes a lot longer to bridge.
Yeah, and one thing I'd like to add too is that the really cool thing about native bridges is that they bridge native assets.
Yeah.
So if you have a roll up, you can't just allow anyone to mint real ETH. You have to have one very trusted or trustless but cryptographically secure party that's going to handle minting ETH, for example. And so like that's what Arbitrum's native bridge does. That's what OP's native bridge does. And that's what Base's native bridge does. With different bridges, you have intent bridges and then also these more of these externally verified bridges. So with intent bridges, you can still get native assets because the solver is just fronting you money. So you still get native ETH on the other side. One thing to consider with the externally verified bridges is often you aren't able to necessarily get the native token. So it's often wrapped into like a synthetic token. And this is because there's risk that the bridge ends up minting tokens that it never burned or vice versa. And most of the time that this is okay. I honestly can't recall a time at the moment that one of these bridges had an issue where they minted funds that didn't exist. But it's always a risk of these other bridges to do that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think another thing to mention with the externally verified bridges, there are many different structures that could work. And essentially, they combine some security models to be able to do so. So, for example, Layer Zero offers developers a more composable security model, and they use something called decentralized verifier networks. And if you're a developer integrating with Layer Zero, so I think gas.zip potentially uses Layer Zero, they can choose between different structures. And some of these structures can actually make use of the native bridge of the contract. So, like you mentioned, if you have a native bridge, you do interact with a native asset. Well, if you are using Layer Zero, that is possible, but you can also opt for a different model depending on what trade offs you're trying to optimize for. Because I think a lot of all of this boils down to trade offs. And one bridge type that we did not use is natively verified. And that is where the chain themselves, they are validating the cross-chain messages without relying on a third-party actor. So an example would be the Cosmos ecosystem and the inter-blockchain communication protocol. Actually, this visual that you see on the screen here is from a report that they generated. And I thought that this was a really good way to distinguish amongst the bridges.
Yeah, and so about the native bridges, IBC is probably, I guess, the most popular native bridge for the Cosmos ecosystem. You can also use it in the Ethereum ecosystem as well. It works for anything, but it's more popular in Cosmos. But a lot of the current interop research that's happening in Ethereum right now is about building native bridges like this that can bridge, native assets. They're verified by the actual rollup itself. So this is something that like Espresso is working on. Aglair is working on something related to this as well. IBC can be used for it. So it's a really big point of discussion in the ETH research space. And to be honest, I actually thought that native and canonical bridges were the same. I did not realize that they were actually two separate things.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if this is the right vernacular to use per se, because definitely I used to say native bridge to mean canonical because we call assets native and canonical. But maybe if you say natively verified, then, that separates it a bit. But yeah, I find that fascinating that you can have a separate network to validate these transactions, or you can do it natively. And you do have trade-offs, but at the end of the day, it's all about how you verify these messages. And you'll hear more things coming out like CK verified bridges, or maybe even bridges verified using TEEs. So it's all about verifying the integrity. Like blockchain data is public, and the validators on that network, they validate that data, and that is public data. So a lot about what we do on chain is about verification. So that's why topics like ZK are so trendy. Even though it's cryptography and it's complex, it's a new way to verify, and we're always trying to do this in a way that's the most secure and also fast.
All right. Do we have any final thoughts on bridging? Oh, first we need to talk about trends. Sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Let's talk about some trends. So trend number one is intent standardization. We see this from the ERC 7683, which is across protocols, is spearheading this, I believe, but they're doing this in collaboration with other players like Uniswap X. And this is so that we can make use of this intent framework that is working quite well. From all of our bridging experiences, we definitely saw that intent-based bridging was very fast. And intents can also be used for one step further. It's not just about, okay, I would like to bridge assets across chain. You can say, I would like to actually swap these assets. So the solver or the relay in the network, they can say, oh, you want to take your assets from Ethereum, and when it arrives on Arbitrum, you would like to buy another token, or you'd like to buy an NFT. So it can definitely be developed into more user-friendly applications because it's just less steps for the user to go through.
Yep, totally agree. And I think intense bridging is going to remain incredibly popular, even if we get better ways and faster ways to do native bridging. Intent bridging, it's a lot easier and it's really convenient for users, and you obviously have the intents part. So this was something that the Across Bridge didn't really show, but the idea is that you actually specify an intent. So instead of saying, please bridge this amount of ETH, you say, I just want some amount of money to show up on the other chain. I don't care how it happens. And I think that that's also a really interesting space and provides a good user experience. So users don't actually have to think about gas fees and pricing, and if they have to have enough money on the other side to pay for gas, etc.
Definitely. I think I'm going to create an issue on the GitHub repo of the too many bridges.wtf website. And I'll ask him to make just that. Like, I would like to just specify, I want to bridge from Arbitrum to Ethereum and automatically decide the bridge for me based on gas fees. Like, let's say I want to spend no more than 10 cents per bridge. So you can take it like even another step further there.
Yeah. All right, the next one is these multi-layered bridges. These are, so Layer 0 and Hyperlane are very popular. I think sometimes you don't hear very much about them because other bridges are built on top of them. So I believe it was dBridge that uses Layer 0. But this approach is where you have some sort of a committee that will authenticate the messages and verify that the messages sent between chains is correct. I think that these are very good. So if the committee that's doing this attestation is pretty decentralized or pretty large, you can get pretty good guarantees. So I definitely wouldn't say that these are insecure. They're not quite the same as verifying message authenticity in a rollups settlement, but I also don't want to imply that they're insecure in any way, because I think sometimes people do, and they're really not.
Yeah. And they also leave it up to the developer to decide, what they're going to prioritize. Just like a developer can create its own L2 because it's going to prioritize low gas fees, for example. It's not a decision for Optimism to make or Arbitrum to make. It's for them to make within their own ecosystem. I believe these solutions try to offer that as well. So with Layer 0, like I mentioned before, it's verified by a validator network, and a lot of the trust assumptions we have in Web3 depend on the fact that we agree that, okay, if we have a network of nodes who are all responsible for validating this data, then there's a reduced possibility that we can have collusion or, depending on how decentralized this network is. So it uses the power of networks and security models to just layer chains. And I think Layer 0 is doing quite well. So I definitely would love to dive in to Layer 0 to learn more.
And actually, one thing I wanted to point out about both the intense bridges and these multi-layered bridges is technically they can suffer from reorgs. Now, in practice, I don't know if this has ever happened, but what can happen is that you submit the transaction on your source chain to bridge, and the intent solver or Layer 0 then submits a message on your destination chain saying, like, here is your money. But then what happens if rollup A reorgs and that transaction actually never ends up happening? So this is a risk, especially if you are not waiting for a lot of confirmations. So I know in Layer 0, applications can actually set how many block confirmations they want to wait for, which is essentially, if you wait for more, the more secure it will be.
Yeah.
But you can imagine if someone says, oh, I only want one block confirmation, there's a really big chance of a reorg happening, and then the bridge is out of money. They've either minted assets without burning the other assets, or if they're a solver, they've lost the money that the user gave them and they just gave away the user free money.
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely risk for solvers more so than intents, and the users, have a better scenario. And I do believe I was reading the documentation of Relay Protocol one time, and there is a way for users to also claim their funds if after a period of time they didn't receive the assets on the destination chain from the solver. So there are definitely checks in place to help with that too.
All right. And then finally, ZK bridges.
Yeah, so we weren't able to use a ZK bridge this time around, unfortunately, but the concept with the ZK bridge is that we are using ZK snarks to verify these messages, verify that these messages are valid and they are sent across chain. I don't have experience using them, but I know ZK proofs are something that we see used in ZK Sync and Mina protocol. So I think it's a good idea. I definitely would love to see how it works in practice and how long it takes, because I do know ZK proofs can be quite heavy. So I would love to see how they manage that.
Yeah. I think ZK bridging I predict it'll become more popular because we're learning how to do proofs faster. And then you can also use different kinds of proofs. So depending on where you have to post the proof, you maybe can tolerate a larger proof. This is not something I thought of. This is something someone at Espresso told me. But I think in the future they're really good, because with a ZK proof, you are really verifying the authenticity of messages, and so you might still have reorg issues if you're not waiting for finality or you don't have some sort of other thing to deal with these reorg issues I described earlier, but you also aren't trusting a committee or an oracle or anything like that.
Yeah. So I have a question for you. Like, if you were to create the ideal bridge, what would that look like? What features would it have? What is the security model?
Okay, so I'm a little bit biased because I do work on something that's semi-related to this. I think the best bridge, if we really had real-time proofs, like you could do proofs within milliseconds, it would just be best to use those. And then you could have immediate but also trustless bridging. I think we're still a little bit away from that proofs that are that fast. So in the meantime, I think what would be really good is to optimistically bridge using a TEE. So two chains bridge between each other. It is a native bridge. They can bridge canonical assets, and they trust that a TEE that these messages are correct. But that's not for safety. That's just for extra reorg protection. So the consistency of the asset still needs to be checked at settle time for both of the rollups. But the TEE gives you a really good guarantee that you're probably not going to reorg. I think right now that is the most promising bridge that I would make. What about you?
I think a bridge that's abstracted, like I like account abstraction, for example. You create a wallet and you don't even recognize that you're creating a wallet. Like I would love if the bridge kind of worked in that way as well, where I am simply just stating a command, like I would like to get this NFT. I don't even know which chain it's on. And the application automatically works that out. And I know that requires a mix of UX and architecture and infrastructure. So it's probably not something that can just be handled on one side. But for me personally, that would be the best experience. And even if it isn't a wallet that is using account abstraction, if I'm just connecting my MetaMask wallet, I think I would like that experience. And if I were to talk about something that maybe is more accomplishable today, I would love if the bridge UI showed a lot more information about what happened about the transaction, because as we saw, you had to go to the Explorer. The fees obviously weren't listed in USD. Like, why can't that just be in my wallet? Like, imagine if I'm on Coinbase, I can see, or if I'm just doing a banking transaction, I can see exactly how much was spent, where it went to, the route it took. Just give me a summary. I think that would be nice. And let's see, in terms of the infrastructure side, I'm curious and excited about ZK. I like the use of cryptography for verifying things, even if I don't fully understand it. So I think that would be interesting. And I could see intent bridges being built on top of ZK powered bridges as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be a lot of new stuff. Like it's definitely not a stale space for sure.
Yeah. So do we want to give any ratings, you think, or?
Well, I suppose we did talk about our favorites, and I guess I didn't say what my least favorite one was.
Yeah.
So maybe what was my least favorite bridge? I have to admit the speed is really, really nice. I don't want to say I dislike the Arbitrum bridge because it's like a native bridge and there's reasons to have a native bridge, but it was the slowest. So that's what I'll say.
Okay. So yeah, I guess we can wrap up now. I would love to hear from everyone watching what they think is the best bridge experience and what they would look for in the perfect bridge.
Yeah, I agree. And also let us know what you think of the bridges that we tried out. If they're your favorite bridges or you don't like them, or if there's any new bridges that we should try, please let us know.
Definitely. And we would love to actually go through the architecture of these bridges. So if you'd like to see that, also leave a comment and let us know which ones. Thank you so much for watching.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. This is the Composable Pod.
Bye.